Shalom, people. This is Brother Lyles coming at you with another video. And I'm getting ready to talk about a very sobering but very pertinent subject. I want to deal with the increasing accounts of this human trafficking, sex trafficking that is going on amongst us as Black people, Hebrew people in this nation. Um, been seeing in the last few months in particular these videos coming out showing young Black uh, girls and then sometimes women that uh, people were attempting to snatch them up and take them away. And I've been also hearing accounts in the news of Black women that were uh, going into their cars or going to certain places, and that people, young Black men, old Black men, people that they knew would come up to them and approach them. Some of them they didn't know and would try to abduct them, right? Try to drug them or get them to go somewhere that they, didn't know where they was going. And also the fact that the number of Black um, women and young girls on the list of missing peoples is you might say, well, you use the word astronomical, you know what you really saying. If it was only 100 that were on the missing persons list, that would be astronomical, but it's more than hundreds. It's more than thousands. It's more than tens of thousands. And this is getting, out of hand. And this is time for the warning to go out with, especially with this anti-Black woman push by our Black men who are falling into the trap of the devil, right? You got these different channels that were brought up by the devil himself, to not just Black men now, it's Black women also that, play a part in this, but both sides are being were hatched by the devil himself to cause this disdain between the Black man and the Black woman, the Hebrew man and the Hebrew woman, not to mention the visuals that are given to us and the part definitely that our enemy plays, but our participation in this. We're living in the last days. 2 Timothy 3 and let me get the word right. Yes, 3 and 13 says this. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Now, when this was written by Paul, he was talking about the time that they were in back there thousands of years ago. So imagine what it is like, because back then they definitely had the slavery, the sex trafficking, and all that stuff was going on. The governments back then didn't really care about that. In fact, some of the governments were probably participating in it. But supposedly over time, right, things were supposed to have got civilized. Mankind was supposed to have moved on past that. And in a sense, some things outwardly seem to have gotten better, but inwardly they haven't. They have not got better, beloved. It's actually got worse because it has gone undercover. It's been gone underground, right? Even let's put it this way. Let's go back even before Paul's time. That even during Solomon's time, in the time that Yasharal was supposed to be at his greatest, that during the time of Solomon, it was supposed to be a time of peace. Even during his time, they had prostitution. And prostitution is a form of slavery. It's a form of sex trafficking. It's a form of human trafficking. Even during his time, because remember the account of the two women that were prostitutes that both had children, and one of the prostitutes' child died, and she took her dead child and took the other woman's live child and put the dead child in her friend's bosom and took her child from her, and they went before Solomon, and Solomon said it cut the child in half. That was prostitution during his time. So this has always been a problem that have needed to be spoke out against, because it doesn't just start with prostitution. It gets to that point of prostitution, but it starts with abuse in the home. It starts with kidnapping, man stealing, pedophilia, all of this stuff. It starts with this. But now that we're in the last of the last days, it's reaching its zenith. And we got to speak out against it while we still have a chance before someone in our family is affected. And then we'll be wanting to get out there on the streets and get everybody to get involved. I'm saying we need to speak out against it. We also need to speak out against sexual deviance amongst our people. We must, as I talked in my last video, speak out against this fornication thing. We must speak out against this thing of our black men and some black women not wanting to get married and perpetuating this free sexual escapades amongst us, which leads to a lot of this stuff. It's wicked. When you look at even before we get into this any deeper, think about the slavery that we went through. One of the major components of the slavery was not just the agricultural things that we gave to this country and then the crops that we grew and all these things, but it was also the sexual component. Think about the slave breeding farms that were in Virginia and Maryland, where they literally were breeding us with each other, right? And where you had some instances where they had relatives that these wicked slave masters were making to copulate with each other. This is of the wickedness, and also at the end of the Civil War, right? That once they was able to try to take a tally of how many slaves and different people, that at the end that they count. I have a feeling that probably more. They had over close to 500,000 mulatto people that came up out of the South, meaning that these plantation owners were doing all kinds of wickedness stuff amongst us, right? And so that this is something, like I said, that we are not saying that it just came about, but it's getting out of hand, right? And that coming out of slavery, our people was not on this tip of doing this kinds of wickedness, because understanding that how the slave trade started was our people selling each other. Even amongst myself, I am of the Benga tribe, but I also have Fang. My ancestry DNA said Benga Fang, and the Benga people, I discovered, were selling the Fang people into slavery, into transatlantic slavery. So somehow, I don't know if it was from a Benga man marrying into a Fang woman or vice versa that it came about, or was it, a thing where they had a Fang woman in captivity and just bred and produced, this is paternal DNA that I'm talking about from my father's side, that this is where it came from. But you can see that component in that. So this is something that is inherent to cause to come up in us, the things of the sins of the fathers that got us put into these different situations. And now that our people are going back into this mentality, right, of doing this wickedness, of grabbing random women in some instances to grab them and to start trying to put them into human trafficking. This is the total wickedness that we have gotten into. Look at this. Let's go here, right? This is a article that I found uh, coming from the Voice of Black Cincinnati, and it's talking about African American human trafficking numbers amongst the highest in the country. And it says that 62% of human trafficking suspects are African American. 52% of all juvenile prostitution arrests are African Americans. 40% of victims of human trafficking are African Americans. Human trafficking victims are typically poor and have a history of exploitation, substance or sexual abuse, learning disabilities, inadequate support systems. Some argue that the demand for African Americans for sexual exploitation is higher than that of other races, and the penalties associating with trafficking African Americans are less severe, right? And it's talking here about, in particular, I guess the Cincinnati area, but it also talks about some other things dealing with Senate bills, right? It says here in July of 2019, Senate Bill 13 passed, requiring 16 and 17-year-olds who are thought to be victims of human trafficking to be treated the same as younger children who are covered by the state's safe harbor law. And this is, I guess, in the state of Cincinnati. So these bridges and gaps allow more children and teens to be protected and increases punishment for those stealing and selling these girls and boys. You understand what I'm saying? This is total wickedness. What do we know about human trafficking among African Americans? In 2018, Essence reported that more than 14,000 calls were made to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Human trafficking is also known as modern-day slavery. Victims are more likely to be African Americans than other ethnicities. In 2012, the Department of Justice reported that 62% of human trafficking suspects included children and adults, including are African American. Additionally, African American children make up 52% of all juvenile prostitution arrests. Many instances, these children are not prostitutes, they are victims. You understand what I'm saying? This is crazy. And it talks here, and I'm not going to read it all, but it talks about how that because of the racism that exists in this country, that a lot of times when black women or in say black men call in to report that they're being trafficked, right? A lot of people do not believe them because they look upon us because of this wicked rap music that has put out our women as sexual objects anyway. They look at us as being hypersexual. And indeed, because we have given in to a lot of these different things, and it shaped the minds of our youth, now they think that it's normal for this behavior. I can clearly remember a relative of mine telling me that when he was in high school, right, this was back in the mid 2000s, actually early 2000s into the mid 2000s, that it was not uncommon for in the high school that they was going to, that there would be instances of young black girls having oral sex with black boys, sometimes in the hallways, in the locker rooms, and different kind of wicked stuff that was going on. That at the early age, these people were being so sexualized, right, that a lot of times this behavior would make them susceptible to young men or sometimes young women. Not to mention, remember when the movie the Gold Club or whatever with Bernie Mac came out, and they was trying to popularize this thing of black girls being strippers while they was in college to make money, to make their way through college and hustling and making it seem glamorous, and it was of the devil. You see what I'm saying? That we set ourselves up, right? Not to mention this case of this young girl, well, she's not young now, but her name was Satonia Brown. And I remember reading the about the case some years ago. But she is this is coming out of the article. It says Satonia Brown is a prime example of an African American girl who was convicted of murder for killing her captor in 2004. At the age of 16, Satonia was prostituted by a pimp and later sold to a 42-year-old Caucasian male. In fear of her life, she shot and killed her solicitor. Her story was captured in the 2011 documentary Me Facing Life, Satonia's story, and brought to light by celebrity Rihanna and Kim Kardashian, who advocated for her release, which is kind of an oxymoron when these two women are just sexually putting out the thing of our women putting their sexuality out there, and it's of the devil. And Kim Kardashian is not even Hebrew woman, a black woman anyway. But it talks about Satonia Brown getting her clemency in 2019 after serving 15 years, right? But she was someone had been trafficked for a long time when she was trying to get out of this. Think about this wickedness that's going on. Like I said, now that, as I said, it's women, your mothers, your father, not father, your mothers, your sisters, your nieces, and all these now are in danger of going into a store and coming out, and somebody being in a parked car beside them, lurk down, and when they get ready to get into their car, they jump out and they grab them and put them in the car and drive off with them, and you never hear from them anymore. And they be chained up in some brothel somewhere, being injected with drugs, and when they try to escape, they beat them. Think about that black man in Cleveland, Ohio, some years ago. They had those black women that he had them in that neighborhood trapped, right, where they couldn't get out, and that they was having children, and the children were being either raised or aborted. Do you understand the wickedness? That black man was just one of the ones that they caught. Think about in the instances of all the different communities and cities throughout this community, this country. I'm just talking about America. I'm not talking about the rest of the world, where you could have potentially, many thousands of women that were on those missing persons lists that are being held captive as sex slaves because of our people's wickedness. That even amongst the churches that this stuff is going on, that they had those, and it was on this guy called Dawson and Dawson. He does a lot of these. He does a lot of these videos about this, and it's a good channel to go. And he showed where some of these pastors are sex trading not just young girls, but also young boys. And some of them are being trafficked overseas, like Eddie Long was doing those young boys. And that you had these families that was entrusting their kids to these pastors. They were being, and in some instances, understanding this, but because of the advantage that they might get, they were allowing their children to be sexually exploited. Do you understand the wickedness while Yah is letting all this stuff come out? Because we have been letting this stuff go on, right? And I'm going to show you that this was a problem amongst our people back in the day because of all the scriptures that Yah put out against us doing this kind of stuff. Now, this I'm getting ready to read is in the English Standard Version, but don't let that stop you. It's just to help to be more understandable. This is Psalms 82:4. It says this: rescue the weak and needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. Proverbs 31, 8 through 9 says, open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. People, a lot of these people, right, you know what I'm saying, that are poured into this stuff a lot, not all the time now, but in many instances, they may be homeless. And now with this big homelessness thing, especially like in places like LA, and people are living in these encampments, these tent cities, and or the places like in Philadelphia where you see on YouTube called the Kensington Project, where they showing all these people strung out on drugs and they just sleeping on the streets and stuff. Don't you not think that a lot of them, those women and those young girls are being trafficked into prostitution? Right? And some because they need the drug, but some because they was kidnapped and pushed there, taken to other cities where they don't know nobody. Nobody would believe them. Isaiah 61:1 says, the spirit of the master Elohim is upon me, because the master has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those that are bound. Think about when Yeshua came, all the prostitutes that he ran into. Think about that. Remember why I say prostitution is a form of slavery. Remember the one that was caught in the act of adultery, right? And what did they do? They brought her out, but the man they didn't show, right? Because women could routinely be treated like that, right? This is become a problem. But see, it's not just the women, it's the young boys too. It's the young boys too. See, it's that now. This is and you wonder why is a rise in this deviant lifestyle? Why? Because of this, wickedness that's going on amongst us that people gotta speak out against. Look at some of the stuff that's going on in some of these Hebrew camps, right? Do you think that they're just dealing with young girls? They're also dealing with young boys, because despite of what these people say, especially they definitely have not been born again, they're capable of doing anything, right? Ezekiel 34:16 says this: I will seek the lost, and I will bring back the strayed, and I will bind up the injured, and I will strengthen the weak, and the fat and the strong I will destroy. I will feed them in justice. Psalms 35:10. All my bones say, "Oh, Master, who is like you, delivering the poor from him who is too strong for him, the poor and the needy for him who robs him." And like I said, now these people, like I said, these drug dealer gangs, Bloods and Crips, gangster disciples, all these people say, hey, that's not dealing drugs. No, not that they're not dealing in drugs, but they say that's deal in prostitution, human slavery, because it's harder for them to get back to us, because people are being passed along, right? And even if they escape, a lot of times they're gonna have a hard time trying to remember all the different people that they came through, and a lot of times it's just gonna be that their life got messed up, and maybe nobody ever will get prosecuted, because it'll be too many people that they will have to remember and have to identify, unless those people would still be there. And it still would be hard because of, like I said, the prostitution is so widespread, right? This is Isaiah 58:6. He said, "Is not this the fast that I chose, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and bring the homeless poor into your house, when you see the naked, to cover them, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh?" And this is, and I wish I knew where to begin with this. They do have organizations out here that are doing this, but a lot of the times, the reason that is allowed to go on amongst us as black people is because, again, We first got to change our sexual outlook on this thing of marriage, not wanting to be married, and this free love. This is feeding into this. This is feeding into this sow your wild oats. So if you're a young black man that want to sow your wild oats, right, and you can go into these different cities and like Las Vegas and all these other places, Atlanta, and sleep with all these different women. Where do you think some of these women are coming from that you are sleeping with, that come up to you and say, hey, that's party? Where you think some of them will come? Some of them are being trafficked. And you are a direct participant in this. And this is why y'all is letting some of this stuff happen to us. And now this is why we seeing all those that were unconcerned with it now is reaching out and touching those that are not poor, those that are not destitute, where they had this black woman on it was on one of Phil's channels, Phil African Diaspora News channel. He has several different, Philip Scott. I think it was on it might have been the Philip Scott Experience. I'm not sure. But anyway, she was reporting how she seen a napkin that was in the handle of her car, right? It was stuffed up in there. Now, fortunately for her, her husband was with her, but she said she thought her husband was playing a joke. So she said but she was cautious. So she said she just took the tip of her fingernail and pulled the tissue out of the door handle of her car. And by her just doing that, she passed out and got sick. They had to rush her to the hospital and she almost died. They said it was some kind of poison on that tissue that was not put there by her husband. Said her husband got her and took her to the hospital. If her husband had not been there, no doubt it was probably somebody that was sitting somewhere waiting for her to pass out and grab her, and probably would have. And this woman was not poor. She was married, right? No doubt somebody would have grabbed her, took her, and if she had survived, she would have been trafficked right now. Or if she would have died, they would have just dumped her body into some abandoned place that nobody would have found her body for years. This is the stuff that's going on now. They're telling you if you come out to your car and you see something sitting on your car that was not there when you left, do not touch it. Call the police, because more than likely it is some kind of fentanyl or something that when you touch it is going to rush into your bloodstream and going to knock you out, and there's somebody waiting for you to grab you up, and they will never see you again. But this is not just happening to black women. It's happened to black men too. What do you think some of these organs that these hospitals are getting? They're rushing in and not just getting black women and black men for other deviant things, but also for their organs. They're harvesting organs. They are doing this kind of stuff. This stuff is out here. And so I'm saying we must speak out against it amongst our people and let our people know that we have predators amongst us. And some of them you might know, and some of you might not know. It could be pastors. It could be stepfathers. It could be uncles. It could be cousins. It could be anybody, right? It's this thing, we have allowed ourselves to get to this point. Like I'm saying, we have women that have allowed their little girls to be sexual objects in order to get a man that they want. They'll use their younger daughters to lure the man in, and then they'll try to get him. But if the man got lured in by the young daughter, he's going to go after the little daughter. He ain't going to be interested in you. But some of them will end up letting them lay with their daughters just to have a man. This is the sickness that our people have got to. But also that now that our black men, some of them, not all of them, some women have figured out what they're about. Now they have these wicked channels telling black men, go overseas and you can get the ones that's not going to disrupt you, that's going to let you sleep with them even though they teenagers or whatever, and exploit them. And I'm telling you, Yah is not pleased with that. The Bible says he is going to purge the rebels from among us, and I don't believe People talking about he gonna get us into the wilderness. We are in the wilderness. We are in the wilderness of the people right now, and we are lost. We are lost. We need to speak out against this stuff right now. This is 1 Thessalonians 4. Let me continue reading 4 and 3. For this is the will of 4:3-7. For this is the will of Yah, your sanctification, that you abstain from sexual immorality, that each of you know how to control his own body in holiness and honor, not in the passion of lust like the Gentiles who know not Yah. That he's talking to our people. He's not talking to the Gentiles here, right? That no one transgress and wrong his brother in this manner, because the master is an avenger of all these things, as we told you before and solemnly warn you. For Yah has not called us for impurity, but in holiness. He's called us to be pure, right? But the only way you're going to be pure is to be born again. You must be born again. You must be a new creature in Yeshua HaMashiach, or Jesus Christ, as some of you call. And even then, you must possess your members. Because even you have some of those that say that they are saved, that are engaging in these wicked kinds of things, which brings into question, are they even saved? When people have been pointing out, when I was in the quote-unquote Christian church, that's Catholicism. Look at what they're doing to those little boys and all this other kind of stuff. The Protestant church is part of the whore of Babylon. Catholicism is just one of it, but under Catholicism is all her daughters, and Protestantism is one of them. Why do I say that? Remember what I said earlier. The sex trade throughout the transatlantic slave trade that was promoted first among the Catholics, but then also amongst the Protestants, which was a major portion of that was sexual immorality. Sexual immorality. Don't forget that when all these Protestant churches try to point the finger at the Catholic Church and talk about these police abusing these boys and girls and all these things, that it still goes among. Think about the stuff that's going on with the Southern Baptist Church, about all the wicked, deviant stuff that's going on and was going on amongst them that they hid for years, that they were doing the same thing, trying to point the finger. And any other religion out there, including the Hebrew Israelite camps and assemblies and stuff where this is going on, that you can't look for salvation in any denomination, group, or name tag. You got to look for salvation in Yeshua HaMashiach, and that you got to judge each individual person on that basis, that you meet them, not because of the background that they say, that you don't distrust them up front, right? You don't. Now, here's James 1:27. He said, religion that Yah Abba accepts as pure and faultless as this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Psalms 68:5-6. A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is Yah in his holy dwelling. Yah sets the lonely in the families. And there's many, many others here. I'm not going to read them, but I'm just here to say that we got to speak out against this, and we gotta start with our families. We gotta start with those that we interact with. That we see this kind of stuff, we gotta speak out against it. We gotta report it. If you know you got a family member that you know is engaging in this stuff, you go get the authorities. Don't try to just handle it yourself and say, I'm going to tell them to stop and they better not do it. No, get the authority, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to probably be a situation that's going to be even beyond what you think. And it's happening. It's happening. Not to even mention this stuff where they're having these LGBTQ couples adopt. If it's a male LGBT couple or a female LGBT couple, they're letting the adopt the children of their same sex, and that they're discovering that what they're doing is they themselves might not be sleeping with the children that they adopt, but they have friends that they're turning these children over to let them to sexually abuse them. And that a lot of these LGBTQ couples that are doing this are Caucasian, and they're going out and adopting our black children and starting them at a young age into this wickedness, so that by the time that they get to a teenager or adult, their mind is totally ruined, and they're set to go into this thing. And you can see the point of wickedness that we're at, that we got to speak out against it, but that also that we got to call on the name of the Most High Yah to come back and to deliver us, because the Bible, again, like I stated, he said, evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse. It's not going to get better. The best that we can do is to try to save some. We're not going to be able to save all. Those that are in our sphere of influence, maybe we can do it. Just think about Lehman Nielsen when he went after his daughter. He knew that he couldn't free all of the women, but he said, I can at least try to get my daughter back. But remember when he seen his daughter's friend, and she was laid up there in the bed, handcuffed to the bed, and she, I guess, had overdosed. I guess they had been overdosed, injecting the drugs in her to make her whatever. Now, of course, in the movie, they made where his daughter, nobody slept with her. I wouldn't believe that would have happened in real life. I believe that she would have been, sexed up just like her friend that was kidnapped. It would have happened to her. But we also, men, older men like myself, got to speak against this stuff amongst younger black men and tell them to change the way they're thinking, but also amongst black women, because the Bible says that the aged mothers are supposed to talk to the women, that you got to tell them, and in some cases it doesn't matter, even if they're not being sexually explicit in their dress and who they hang with and the things that they, but that also they must not advertise themselves out here like this, and that it's just certain things and places that they just cannot go. That they, you talking about, you want to live safe, happy, whatever. Don't put yourself in those places where you can. Now, of course, like I said, you can be going to the grocery store. You can go to the department store, and it could be somebody waiting out there. There's no doubt about that. I'm saying it's getting to that proportion. But I'm saying, other than those those incidents, there are definitely places that that you're gonna go, that you're putting yourself in danger. You're going to a club, you're going to some kind of concert or something like that, or whatever, depending on the situation and what kind of concert it is. I'm just letting you know, if you go into some of these, I'm a firm believer now that hip hop, rap music, and all that there's nothing redeemable about it. Although we do have what some would call, some Christian rappers, I would not even, to me, I like definitely the music they put, but I would not even, to me, if I was them, I would not even put that tag of rapper or hip hop or any of that on. I would just say, Yah has given me a gift for saying lyrics, but I would not try to tie myself to that, because it's so tainted what BET and a lot of these other channels did when they put all these black women in these videos and had them doing sexually splendid stuff and whatever. It's just, and even before, like I said, the whole Africa Bambaataa thing, where they finding out that he was engaged in some LGBTQ stuff and all this kind of stuff. It's just, to me, you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. And we just got to pray. We got to be vigilant, right? And we got to ask the Most High to purge these rebels among us. Don't be trusting of anybody that you just meeting, men or women, because sometimes they say they'll use one of the other women that they have, got into the sex trade to lure other women into. Think about this thing with Jeffrey Epstein, and I would be interested to see the number, if they could find out the number of black women that Epstein was bringing to this island as opposed to the white women. I think he definitely was bringing them to, but I'm believing that it probably was a lot of our women. And think about this: they're flying these women out there on these planes, right, and supposedly flying them back. Who's to say that when these women got out to that island, they never came back? That once especially they met some world leader, that they probably didn't take them out there and shoot them and throw their body in the water, or as they was flying them back, just open up the plane door and just push them out into the ocean, in the middle of the ocean, and nobody would never find them. Their body would just be ate up by the sharks and just go to the bottom and be crab food. This stuff is real. Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. So this is not nothing new, what I'm saying. But the only thing is now is at a different level. It's at a worldwide level, and it's into the millions. It's into the millions that this is happening. Think about the stuff that's going on with our people that's crossing from Africa into Europe, where they saying most of the women that's going there are being trafficked as sex slaves to pay back the money to the coyotes. And even with the Hispanic people that's coming across, that some of their women are being trafficked into the sex trade, and on and on and on and on. That if Yeshua don't come back, no flesh is going to survive. That nobody in your family that's a female might be unaffected. I tell my wife all the time going out, be careful, right? And if somebody come up to you trying to sell you something, ask for money, don't do it. Don't do it. Somebody try to give you something, don't take it. Don't be stupid, right? The world definitely is on its way out of here. But the Bible said, when you see these things, don't be in despair. Look up, because your redemption is closer than when you first believed, because Yeshua has to come back. But still, don't be deceived. So with that, I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. I'm going to ask you to subscribe. I'm going to ask you to give this video a thumbs up. Be blessed.